you ever see the episode of Portland? Do you watch Portlandia?
I have seen Portlandia, yeah.
Did you ever see the episode of Put a Bird on It?
I think so. I think I've seen all the episodes. I don't remember that, though.
We are recording now with the legendary Phil Goldenberg.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. It's good to finally meet you over the internet and not just DMs.
Yeah, it's great to meet you. For sure.
So a bunch of cool things to talk about, but first, before we get into all the cool nuts and bolts and the cool stuff that you've accomplished and done, how are you? How are you doing with the quarantine? How's life right now?
I'm doing good. You know, the funny thing about the quarantine was when it started, I thought like, oh man, I'm gonna get some time to myself and I can like learn some repertoire and stuff. But immediately, as soon as quarantine started, like all of my goals shifted, and I've been like just as busy as ever, pretty much. So yeah, I mean, quarantine is good. It's busy.
Yeah.
I live in New York. I live in Brooklyn, so it's real bad out here. But like, you know, I can still go to a grocery store and stuff.
Are you guys? So you're doing a lot of teaching right now?
I do some teaching. Yeah, I do some teaching. I do teaching. I do like performing. I have like other various kind of avenues.
Yeah. What would you be doing right now if you weren't in quarantine? How would that impact your sort of music schedule?
Oh man, right now I would have actually. Okay, so this past week was the Manus seminar, so I would have been at the Manus seminar. In real life, I was at the Manus seminar digitally. But then today, I would have been in Spain, in Petrar, Spain, for the Jose Tomas Festival, where Hannah is doing a talk on social media, was going to do a talk on social media, and I was going to compete in the competition. Then we were going to do Italy afterwards for the Lanciano seminar. So, like, we missed so much crap, so much good stuff.
Spain and Italy, missing out on both of those is like... especially for musicians.
I know. I missed Miami immediately as soon as coronavirus hit. I missed Miami. I was going to go to Miami, and then I was going to go somewhere else, somewhere in the South, for Appalachian State, and then I was going to meet Mike Gibson of the Messy Desk series.
Mm-hmm.
In the Netherlands. Also, that was going to be like a week in the Netherlands. That was going to be sick. So anyway, missed a lot of traveling. That kind of sucks.
Sadness ensues. But you were saying you found a good balance now. Are you doing are you getting a chance now to like practice, you know, with like, you know, a different set of goals and get a chance to look into different music? Are you getting that chance to sort of to self-indulge right now?
Definitely. Yeah. Now I'm actually getting a little bit of time. There was a time where I was a little busy with all the online competitions. They all sort of popped up at the same time, and then they all the deadlines were at the same time. So I spent a lot of time on my traditional kind of competition rep, but then I also am getting some time now to dive into like, you know, pieces. I have a certain set of repertoire that like I want to learn, and I've learned like a lot of first movements, and now I'm learning some second movements and third movements.
Well. Yeah, I found that too. I think we're kind of experiencing the same thing where like you don't feel as necessary to have an entire program right now where you can start swapping things out and start like diving into stuff that you didn't have time to before.
Yeah, exactly.
So Phil, you play a lot of contemporary music, and I think that's wonderful because I think there's I don't know what you would call it. I guess sort of like an aversion sometimes, like I don't know if you feel the same way. I get like this Bach guilt, right? Like I'm like, I should be playing Bach, but I find like I'm doing other things, and I find that that's what really makes me happy. So I want to talk about that. But first, like we do in all of these episodes, I want to rewind. I just want to talk about how you got into guitar, because you're pretty nasty. You have quite an education, and we're going to talk about that too. But why don't you just tell me how you got into classical guitar?
How I got into classical guitar.
Or guitar. We can start with guitar in general first.
I was like 14, and my friends wanted to start a band, and one of them already played bass, and one of them was the drummer. So I played guitar. So it was like, it wasn't really like one of those situations where it's, oh, that's the sound that I want to play. It was just like, all right, guitar time, here we go.
And you guys are still together today, right?
What'd you say?
You guys are still together today?
Me and guitar? Yeah, exactly.
Well, I meant the band.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The band, I think actually practiced twice.
Nice.
In actuality.
Nice.
But I started taking guitar lessons. So I did that. And in high school, I got really, really into jazz. But I actually didn't learn any jazz. I was going to my lessons and I would learn like Metallica covers, basically. And that was because there was just one day where I told my teacher, like, hey, I want to start learning jazz. And he was like, well, I don't know jazz. And I was like, all right, it's Metallica time then. It never even crossed my mind, like, I should get a different teacher. Now it seems so simple.
Yeah, but anyway, that's so funny. Like, honestly, I've done that before. When I first started teaching, I was 19, and there were definitely kids that were like, oh, I want to try out for the jazz band next year in middle school. And I was like, Enter Sandman is a pretty good song. I don't know about you.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you're put in that scenario. But yeah, anyway, so I did that, and I tried to teach myself jazz, which is, of course, really difficult. And, that's a super intricate thing. So the school that I wanted to go to was Rowan University, which is in New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey, so I wasn't trying to leave the state, really. And they required a classical audition along with their jazz audition. So I was getting ready for my jazz audition, and I just had my teacher teach me like the bare minimum classical stuff by rote, which was Villalobos Prelude 3 and some Carcassi thing. It wasn't even an etude. It was like some like caprice or something. So I learned that, and I remember specifically that I did not do a good job. I remember the first time I used a footstool was in that audition. He asked me, do you need a footstool? I said, yes, I do. And I put my foot on it. It felt like it was like a mile away.
Did you say Etude 3 or Prelude 3?
Prelude 3, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, still learning that.
Holy crap.
No, I thought you said Etude 3 at first, and I was like, who is this guy?
Yeah, oh my gosh. No. Prelude 3.
But learning it by rote, that's pretty cool.
It was cool. In the audition, Joe Mays, who's the classical teacher at Rowan, told me, listen, you learned a lot of that wrong. Just because I was thinking about, like, go up to 7.
Right.
It's like 6, 3, 2. And, like, at some point it got screwed up, and the teacher never corrected me, so whatever.
Right.
But anyway, my classical audition was not amazing. And Joe Mays said, listen, I'm going to pass you because if I fail you and the jazz guys pass you, then you don't get into the jazz program. So I'm just going to pass you, and you can go take your jazz audition. The jazz audition went even like 1,000 times worse. I got in there and I played like I think I played like maybe 13 notes, and the guy was just like, stop. I didn't even get through the audition. They were supposed to be like 4 parts.
I'm sorry.
I maybe got 2 in.
It's just hilarious. I'm sorry. I'm picturing you like auditioning, and they're like, oh, we're going to play Autumn Leaves. And you're like, well, I learned Master of Puppets from my guitar lessons. So can we do that?
Yeah, exactly. So basically he just said, listen, take some lessons with the jazz guitar teacher here, re-audition in the spring, whatever. Sure. But lo and behold, when I get my acceptance letter, I'm in the classical program because Lovely. Joe just passed me. So whatever. Yeah. So in my first lesson, Joe's just like, hey, I'm just going to treat you like you're a jazz major and whatever. But for this semester, you're a classical major. So like, take some CDs. That he had like a whole, bookshelf full of CDs. He was like, take a CD and listen to classical guitar. Because I had listened to 0 classical guitar until that point. Mm-hmm. So I found a guitar CD by Michael Troster called Jazzy Guitar Classics.
Ooh.
And I was like, perfect. Okay. That's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I listened to it, I was on the Long Island Railroad, and I listened to Michael Troster's Prelude 1. And it was just like something like flipped in my brain that was just like, like, okay, we're doing this now. And I just listened to that on loop for like, a 2-hour train ride, and then like the rest of my undergraduate, basically, that CD. So you never
pursued the jazz stuff?
I never auditioned again. It was just like, I didn't audition for the jazz thing again. I just was like, okay, classical guitar is sick. I'm just going to do classical guitar.
That's really cool. And that's also, that kind of, because you were an electric guitar player before that, right?
I was, yeah.
And you took that serious enough to say, oh, I want to go to school for jazz. Because for me, I really didn't like jazz. Nothing really appealed to me about it, but I wanted to study guitar. I also didn't want to go to Berkeley because I was like, as a rock guitarist, like all of my friends were like, no, people drop out, don't go, all this stuff. And then, which by the way was completely unfounded. That was just anecdotal experiences from burnt out,
right?
Examples. But it took me a long time to get into classical guitar from electric guitar because so many things didn't carry over, right? Like for me, I was like, why is this instrument so quiet? But you heard something in those recordings.
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, Michael Troster is a nasty player. If you haven't listened to his albums, like he's a good composer. I like his compositions, but like he's a phenomenal player. And his albums have won they've won awards for their mixing and mastering because it's just like massive. It feels huge in the headphones. So it was never like a problem of it being quiet, especially because I was kind of a quiet person. Most of the time when I was playing electric guitar, I was just playing in my room, like unplugged. So I didn't care about it, being quiet. So you
discovered
sound.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was just gonna say. So you discover this album, you decide that this is what you want to do, and what were those initial lessons like? Joe Mays is in the Northeast, a pretty well-known name. He has his own guitars.
He does. Yeah, he makes guitars.
Okay, he makes guitars. Yeah, I had played one of in undergrad. One of my colleagues had one of his guitars, and it was cool. It's a little bit smaller width-wise, and able to sort of take it, be a little more rugged with it.
They're nice guitars. Joe's the first one to say that like his guitars sound better than they look. But they're really, really great guitars for students, especially. And it's just like a concert sound. Good sound. But Joe, oh my gosh. If you want to talk about my undergrad, it's basically all just Joe Mays. Joe Mays and Kathleen Mays, definitely not to erase Kathleen. Basically, Joe Mays took me from not caring at all about classical guitar, never hearing it, to recognizing that I, first of all, liked a challenge and responded to a challenge, and loved the instrument and loved the repertoire that I was finding for the instrument, which was not really like the Spanish repertoire. It was like Roland Diennes and jazzy repertoire.
Sure.
So, so basically Joe taught me to love the instrument and also to like love practicing, which I think is one of the most important things for anybody to be a professional musician. Is you have to love practicing, because if you're just practicing because you love performing, then you're not gonna, you perform once every 2 weeks or once a week or something. That sucks. You practice every single day, many hours a day. And then Kathleen destroyed my technique, annihilated my technique. Kathleen gave me the toughest technique lessons of anybody I've ever had besides Renee Esquero. Renee Esquero is also nasty on technique.
Yeah.
but Kathleen would do this thing where I would play a note. I would just play a note, and she would say no. And I would play a note, she would say no. And just over and over and over again. And eventually she would say yes. And I would be like, I don't know why that one was good. Like, I can't even hear it. And I would do it over and over and over again. I just would try to get that good sound. So, my sound is like probably, it's so much Kathleen. It's a ton of Kathleen.
What is it like there so you're talking about lessons with both of them. What is that? Because are they both a part of the same studio?
They are, yeah. They both teach at Rowan University. I took 2 years with Joe and 2 years with Kathleen.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it was like they both taught, in the same studio, and you went back and forth on like studio class or something like that. What was the
Joe Mays is like one of these guys who's got like a phrase for everything and it's saying for everything. What he would say is you can't fall off. You can't learn to ride you can't learn to ride more than one bike at a time.
Sure. That's true.
So he was saying like you can't take lessons with both of us at the same time, but you can take lessons. You can split your degree like that.
So you were talking about some really cool stuff that he instilled in you as an undergrad. And those are lessons that, and I don't know how well you learned them at that age, because sometimes those are like lifelong lessons. But it sounds like he gave you some really impressive things that a lot of people don't think about until their masters or onward, especially loving to practice. And you said being up for a challenge, and those are not exclusive to classical guitar, right? To recognize that in a student is important, because then that, you're talking about finding this sort of contemporary, fusion-y, jazzy, post, we got to play the guitar like this, post, Giuliani style. It's time to shred. Well, some of the Dion's, but like that kind of music, right? To be able to say, okay, here's an undergrad, never heard of classical guitar, loves it now. I'm going to help this person fall in love with the whole process. Can you talk about that? Like, what did he do? What were some of those things that really helped you to sort of find out who you were with the instrument?
The secret is really, if you're trying to do this for your student, it's like, it's easy. It's just time. Like, Joe was just there all the time. He was full-time. Like, this is something that no longer exists in the U.S. is full-time professors that are there 4 or 5 days a week, and they're there from like 9 till 5. And I lived on campus, and I was in the music building, and Joe was teaching, sometimes, and he was sometimes teaching other classes, but most of the time I was just hanging out with Joe, and he'd be like, all right, let's like read some Coast or whatever. Let's read some duos that I found on the internet. And I would spend like, maybe 5 hours a week in Joe's office, just like reading duos and chewing the fat, so to speak, just chilling out and like absorbing information.
What I think a lot of people don't understand that don't do this is that the relationship, it's not just the relationship between the teacher and the student, but this idea of mentorship, this idea of, I'm going to teach, sure, I'll teach you how to get a really good sounding rest stroke, but I'm also going to share with you how I see the world and how I see art and music. And that is such an important way that we learn. And I say this as a humble brag, but the classical guitar world is small. So we're all related to Segovia in some way, but Segovia taught Oscar Gilia taught my teacher's teacher, Richard Provost, who taught my teacher, Chris Ladd. So sometimes I get these ideas that are like these really cool, refined things where I'm like, that probably came from the top dog. And the reason that I say that is that it's like, well, those guys didn't just give guitar lessons, right? Segovia mentored Gilia, and Gilia mentored everybody, So the way that you're talking about the relationship with your teacher, it's like, it's really important to be able to say, oh yeah, okay, I can approach it like this, or what would that person do? I think one of the most terrifying things is when you're practicing and you hear your teacher's voice in your head.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of it, is like you hang out with this person for so long, and then it's like I used to I had a practice room at Rowan, because Rowan, although the guitar studio is pretty strong with Joe and Kathleen, the school is not very strong for music. It's a music education school, and people just didn't really practice. So I kind of like moved into a practice room that people didn't. I guess they thought it was locked, and I started like leaving stuff in there, and nobody ever messed with it. So I moved in basically. I had like posters on the wall. I brought lamps and stuff in, and like I had a rug. It was, it was nice, but I would be practicing in my practice room, and I would just have like a problem, and I would just grab the music and run over to Joe's office and say like, "Hey Joe, what would you do with this fingering?" And I felt like after 4 years of doing that, I no longer needed to like run into his office. I'd just be like, "I know what Joe would do that."
Sure.
Joe would do this
yeah,
thing.
absolutely.
And that's, I think, what you're trying to do for your students, is just like let them become their own teacher.
Sure. Absolutely. So after 4 years, what did you do?
After 4 years, I ended up going to the Cleveland Institute of Music. One thing that's interesting about my graduate school is that I got rejected from like every single graduate school that I applied to. I applied to 7 schools, and I got into 2 of them. And then in the summer, I auditioned for the Cleveland Institute of Music, and I got in there, and I went there to study with Jason Vieira.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, as far as like my skill level at that time, it was not very good. Like I was still very much a beginner, because I'd been playing for 3 or 4 years by the time I got to school. By the time I got to college and I started playing classical guitar. At that point, I had been playing for 4 years, playing classical guitar for 4 years. So, any achievement that I got was great.
What do you think happened in that break between your application? Because you're saying that there was a break between when you applied to Jason's studio, right? And the rest of the applications. What do you think you did, or what do you think you learned or got in that break that allowed you to then find land? Because I mean, that's not a bad studio. That's a pretty nice place to be.
Yes, it is.
So what happened? What's your secret? What is it? Is it a smoothie?
It's not a smoothie. It's honestly, I think that it was kind of a lean year on CIM applications.
Oh, okay.
To be honest, like CIM had no master students, and they had no incoming master students. So for me to audition, and also my friend Eric, who was also at Rowan, to both audition at the Cleveland Institute of Music was like a helpful thing for them. They were like, "Oh, good, we can like accept these guys and have a guitar studio." Right. So it was kind of a lean year. But I also got into Shenandoah and Peabody. Those were my other 2 options. Both of them with Jay Gray.
Sure.
And those were cool. I didn't want to pay for Peabody, and Shenandoah is in the middle of the woods, and I grew up in the middle of the woods. I'm not really
sure.
So Cleveland was better than going to the middle of the woods.
Yeah. Shenandoah is where my guitar teacher went for his undergrad, and where I believe, I think this is correct, where one of my future interviewees, Patrick Kearney.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where he went, and he's pretty good too.
Interestingly enough, even though Joe is a little bit older than Chris Ladd, to say the least, Chris Ladd, Patrick Kearney, and Joe Mays were all at Shenandoah at the same time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I believe that's accurate.
Yeah. So you find Cleveland, and for those of you who don't know, The guitarist that you went to study with is arguably one of the best classical guitarists on the planet right now. You could make arguments that he is the best. You could make arguments that he's in the top 5, whatever, wherever you would place him. He's pretty nasty. He's a funny guy, and he loves fast food.
Yeah. One time I asked Jason, Jason, when you're on the road, how do you stay in good shape? How do you like not overeat and eat a lot of like fast food and stuff? And he said, what I do is I go to just the best restaurant I can find. And I'm like, oh great, I'll just do that with you know, my $15 in my pocket or whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, whatever. But yeah, Jason was great. The best things that I learned from him were just sort of from osmosis. Like there's something that clicks in your head when you like sit next to somebody and they play like that, and you're like, oh God, like it's possible to play like that. Like
sure,
I can like. It's one thing to see somebody's concert and see them play like Jason plays, which is flawless. Not just flawless, but like
it's beautiful.
Like moving.
It's wonderful stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he has like a depth of sound, and he has a volume, a really impressive volume, and just is nasty musically. And it's really just like sitting next to somebody who is playing like that. That makes you go like, I have to step up my game because I want to play the concerts that he's playing, and he's gonna beat me every time. Like
sure.
if I want to play like, I have to play like him if I want to, you know,
sure,
have a career like this. But yeah, I mean, Cleveland was good. It's cold.
What was the environment like? Because this is the most often told story on this podcast. I don't know if this is just a guitar player thing or what this is, but us classical guitarists find it later in life, are studying it with a good teacher at a not so great school, and then for our master's degree, go to somebody who is like, or not just the teacher that's great, but the whole place is a complete change. What was Cleveland like compared to your undergrad, like environment wise? Because obviously Jason is going to teach what Jason teaches, and Joe is going to teach what Joe teaches. But what was that environment like, the rest of it?
The environment was very cold and competitive.
Oh.
There was not a lot of like, there wasn't a lot of vibe in the studio. Like nobody in the studio would really hang out with each other.
Oh, wow.
And I basically, in Cleveland, I had one friend. He was a pianist. And then the next year, his girlfriend, now wife, came. And I had 2 friends in Cleveland.
Wow.
So, yeah, Cleveland...
That's frustrating.
Yeah, not great. I was doing long distance with Hannah also at that time. Yeah, Jason won a Grammy in my second year, and that was great. You know, it was really good for the value of the degree and all. But he had to do a lot of promotional stuff that year.
Yeah.
So didn't really get a lot of lessons.
Yeah.
You know,
it's weird because the journey of the you know, at least the journey that we take, right? You sign up for one thing and you get, and these are like pros and cons. You sign up for one thing and then you get all this other stuff that you didn't expect. And sometimes they're things that are really great and really helpful. And then sometimes they're things that are frustrating.
Yeah.
But it's wonderful that you got that experience too, and the connection too. I mean, the fact that you're in this guy's network now, Jason's network, and the network of those other performers, at least they know about you, even if it's a very competitive place. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, you continued your education.
I did. I took 3 years off after that, and I worked for 3 years basically. I had a job at the Metropolitan Museum of Art as a security guard, which was cool.
Security guard.
Yeah, I would literally just like, I had an 8-hour-a-day job, and I would just stand there, and if somebody got close to a painting, I would just say, please don't touch.
Wait, give me your best. Can you give me your best like security guard voice right now? Just like here's me.
Please don't touch. I would literally wake up in the middle of the night, and Hannah will vouch for this. I would wake up cold in the middle of the night and just like please don't touch. Especially if I was working in Egypt. People in Egypt, in the Egyptian section of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, think that because things are like made out of rocks, you're allowed to touch them. So like people use like slapping sarcophaguses and stuff,
my God.
Sphinxes, like rubbing like a sphinx's face, and it's like you can't touch that.
That's so
literally
scary.
Like 12,000 years old.
Yeah. Is that the room with the big water thing?
Yeah, Temple of Dender. Yeah.
That I love that room. I went. So funny story, not related to music at all.
Uh-huh.
My wife now, girlfriend at the time, we went there, and I was like, no, I've never, because we live in Connecticut, and she's like, let's go to New York, and I don't remember how we got there, but she planned it. She was like, let's go to the museum. Have you been there? And I was like, no, I don't think I've been here. I don't think I've ever been here. I've seen it on the outside, and we go in that room, and I was like, oh my God, I was here when I was like 4. And that one room with the water, and just like you go into that room, and there's this cold blue light that's coming in, and it's beautiful, and there's so much space, and you get to think, and it's
oh my gosh,
really beautiful. Not to neglect that they have a beautiful collection of instruments there.
Yep, they knew that I was a guitarist, so they assigned me to musical instruments. So most of my days I spent like 2 solid months, that every day I would spend 4 hours in front of Segovia's house, which was cool. Wow. It was like, I know where that guy sweats.
Do they still have it?
They still have it, yeah. They have a lot of cool guitars. They have Segovia's Hauser. They have a Stouffer owned by Legnani. They have
really.
Yep. They have more. They have a couple other Hausers. They have a few Hausers that were owned by Rose Augustine, and they have a couple Hausers that were owned by Julian Breed. They have a pretty good guitar collection.
That is, I wasn't into classical guitar at the time, so I remember going there and I was like, oh yeah, that's a lute or something. Let's keep going.
Yeah, right. A grandpa's guitar.
That's they only had 5 strings. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
What did you do after you were? So, what was your education like?
Yeah, so I did that. I did that, and then I did. I was trying to get my teaching studio up. So I taught on my 2 days off, but then what I found was that I couldn't really, I couldn't teach. And also, if I quit my job, I couldn't get students fast enough in order to live. So I went to doing overnights at the Met. And so I would do like night at the museum every night. And then I would go teach right after. And I did that for maybe 4 months before I was good enough to have like a full teaching studio and live.
Were you teaching out of a music store, or this was just
at a couple music stores? I was at the New York Guitar Academy, which still exists, and I was at a the unnamed studio in Queens, which was ridiculously far away, absurdly far away. I had to take a green train to a yellow train to the LIRR, which is a separate ticket. And I would ride that bad boy for like 2 hours to this place.
Wow.
And then I would have days where I would go all the way out there, and they would call me 2 minutes before I would start and say, all your students canceled. And oh my God.
Trigger.
I just want to like explode. So anyway, I was working at those places, and at least I'm not working at those places anymore. New York Guitar Academy is great. I got no problem with that. But that other place sucked.
What kind of stuff were you taking lessons over that break? Were you?
Nope. I was practicing as much as I could. I'll tell you what, I worked on my sight reading a lot when I had no time. I had, when I was working at the Met, I really found I'm a morning person. So for me to wake up, and my shift would start at 8. So I had to practice before 8. So I would wake up 4:30, 5 in the morning and practice until I had to go to work. And then when I came home, I would just be completely annihilated. And I found that the only thing I could really, really get done in like an hour is getting better at sight reading. So I spent like 8 months just like sight reading Bach and Barrios and 19th century stuff. I've been sight reading forever.
The easy stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, was the 19th century stuff is kind of the easy stuff. And I was already good at sight reading 19th century stuff. So what I wanted to do was expand my palette of things I could sight read. So I wanted romantic repertoire. I wanted more modern repertoire that I would understand chord shapes of. You know what I mean? Like, because if you read a lot of 19th century stuff, you learn all the 19th century chord shapes. It just turns into like, oh yeah, there's A minor, there's E major, there's whatever, up and down the neck. But yeah, anyway, I worked on sight reading a lot. Sight reading has always been weak for me because I started late. So it was good for me to get into that.
And then you have your doctorate, or you started a doctorate?
I did a professional studies degree.
Okay.
Basically, I was feeling like I was in New York, and I did a couple of competitions. After I got my teaching studio together, my life was a little more together. I did a couple of competitions, and I had I didn't have great success. At this point, I had gotten second in a competition. I had gotten first once. And
Appalachian, right? Is that you won the Appalachian?
No, not Appalachian State. I got second in Philadelphia in 2012 when I was a junior in college, which was a long time ago. But that was when it was a really little competition. And then I did the James Stroud All Ohio competition, so that was very local. But I won that one. That was really good for my ego and everything.
Sure.
And then then I was finding that I wasn't winning a lot, basically in 2015 especially. I think I did 5 competitions. I got to the semis in all of them, and then didn't get to the finals in any of them.
Sure.
Which sucked. Also, that's like a big roller coaster that nobody likes. But what can you do? So anyway, eventually I found my way to Manus. That was because I took a couple of lessons before a competition, before the Philadelphia competition in 2018 maybe. And I took a lesson with Michael, and the lesson was great. He held me really long. It was like an hour and a half lesson or something. And then later he was like texting me things like, hey, you should do this, by the way. Like, hey, also, like, I was thinking about your piece and you should do this. And it's like, I was feeling like, wow, this guy really like cares about his students.
Sure.
And then I ended up winning that competition, which was awesome. And so anyway, I decided to go back and get this professional studies degree, which I really enjoyed.
What was sort of the focus of study, if you had to condense, because how long was that degree? How long was that study?
It was 2 years. Basically, it was lessons and a bunch of guitar classes. But the focus of the lessons was a lot about developing your career rather than like put your finger here, play good. So, because at that point I was already playing pretty good. So Michael really was like working on developing my business skills, which was great. I really, really appreciated that, because that's something that's so neglected in music education at the college level.
Sure. What were some of those things that you did? Not to give away all your secrets. I mean, you got to keep some for Phil. What were some of the things that you learned there that you were like, oh my gosh, why haven't I been doing this?
Honestly, at the end of the day, exploiting opportunities, not exploiting, but like recognizing that there's an opportunity in front of you, and then realizing that opportunity to the fullest. Because so much of what, so some opportunity is chance. And actually all opportunity is chance, really.
Sure.
But when you play really, really good, you get more chances. Like every time you go out and you play, you get a chance of somebody hearing you going, hey, I want you to play this other thing. And if you played bad, then you would not get that chance. So there's some meritocracy in there, but you're basically fighting with all of your playing for more chances. And then if you get that chance and you just sit on that guy's business card, then like, why do you even practice? You know, like the whole thing is like, not just, I'm going to email this guy. It's like, I'm going to email this guy and he's going to tell me, no, we can't fit you in this season. And I'm going to remember that guy. And I'm going to email him in 6 months and say, hey, by the way, I just released this album. I know you're not looking for anybody this season, but like, I just thought you should know that there's some great music that I thought you'd be interested in. And then 6 months again, you'd be like, hey, by the way, I've got this concert coming up. I'd love for you to come. Just let me know if you want to come in. I'll get you tickets. Then that turns into a concert. And then that concert, you can follow up on that concert. You can have that be a concert that you play every 3 years for the rest of your life.
Right.
You know, you're developing relationships with people. That's one thing that I'm really learning as I'm getting more into the real business end of music.
There's a truth to that is really powerful, because you're right. If you just email blast 100 people and, you know, you'll get 10 that first of all, 85 of them aren't going to reply.
Yes.
You get 15 of them are going to reply. 10 of them are going to say no. 5 of them are going to say maybe one of them would say yes. But you're right, by following up. And I mean, gosh, one of my best paid gigs ever was just, I heard somebody on NPR once promoting a library somewhere in Connecticut. And I called them and said, hey, I heard your interview on NPR. That was a really nice interview. I like how you blah, blah, blah. By the way. And they were like, yeah, do you want this amount of money? And it was like, yes. I was cool. I was like, yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, I could work with that budget.
I can work with that budget. That's half of my rent, but
right.
But the fact is that those relationships now, and that was such a good concert. It's like, you know, I'm sure I would be playing there if we weren't in the quarantine right now. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's you know, we all focus so much on playing well, and it's about playing well. At the end of the day, you have to hype up this product that's really, really good, which is your playing, and then the product needs to be amazing. Right. You know, you can only hype things up so much before, you know, it needs to be good.
Yeah.
But yeah, you also can't have this amazing product and just like, you know, not sell it at all.
And that's, I mean, and, you know, and that's why there's this, you know, you kind of see it. I'm sure there's a circle of players down there. There's definitely a bunch of people up here that, you know, they play music that's for the audience, right? And not really for the guitar players. And, you know, one might look at that and roll their eyes and say, oh, well, I did all of that in my first year of undergrad, but they're the ones playing all the gigs. And they're the ones that are out there. The people know their names, right?
Okay, so here's where we're going to get into unpopular opinions.
Let's do it.
So I'm going
to burn every bridge that we have. Every bridge, yes. Just set it on fire.
I don't think that we have to play the Spanish repertoire. Not Spanish repertoire specifically, but I don't think that we need to play the standards in order to get concerts.
Sure.
A lot of people think that we need to play Leyenda because the audience wants it, or that we need to play the Grand Overture because the audience wants it. But at the end of the day, the audience hasn't heard any of this music unless you're playing to guitarists. If you're playing to guitarists, the audience has heard all of this music to death and they don't want to hear that anyway. And I play Capricho Arabe, so I know.
Yeah.
When I play Capricho Arabe to a bunch of people who've never heard it before, it's like amazing. When I play it to guitarists, they're thinking like, oh wow, he didn't buzz in that F major part. Like, it's like an analytical thought process. It's like they don't want to hear that music so much. But what I'm saying is that I'll play tons of I play a lot of concerts to people who are never guitarists, not guitarists at all, and usually not musicians. And I play like 90% contemporary repertoire, and it all goes over just as well as when I play Barrios and what was the piece I was just saying? Capricho Arabe.
Sure.
It's really about what the audience responds to is how much you love that piece. So if you love the classic repertoire, then that's cool. But it's more about just finding what you love and just like loving it on stage.
I think I agree with you. I think where the disconnect is there is when you're playing to an audience where the expectation is that they're going to want that kind of music. So for example, I haven't played a restaurant in a long time.
Oh gosh.
But when I did, I wouldn't play the Grand Overture, right? Mm-hmm. I probably wouldn't even play. No, I would play Bach. There's a lot of stuff that I play now that I wouldn't play in a restaurant, right? And that makes sense. But yes. I think we take that sort of like, okay, I got to put something in there to please the crowd and just kind of get carried away with it. Or in my experience, I would just go back to the Villalobos preludes when I wanted to fill some time. Like if I was like, there was one summer where I did a bunch of retirement homes to run the Grand Overture and the PFA. And that's all I cared about was how well I played the Grand Overture and the PFA. The second half of the program was Villalobos preludes, right? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't because I loved them. It's because I could bring them up in a week and be fine,
mm-hmm. That's right.
And so, but you're right. There's a lot of concerts. Like I remember this one really nice concert I saw, and it was this guitar showcase just of not just classical guitar, but all sorts of guitar. And one of the main events was this big orchestrated version of Leyenda. And I thought, yeah, this is cool, but you don't play it that well. And I've heard you play other things. Let's hear what else you could do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that so much of becoming a mature guitarist is learning what you do well and learning what you like, and then leaning into that to a certain degree. And I think that some people consider that like niching down, like becoming a more niche player. But I don't think that it necessarily needs to be a niche. It's just something that you're interested in right now. As an artist, I think it's okay to be interested in Casanova Tedesco, for example, and play all of Casanova Tedesco and have a CD or whatever. And I think that it's just as legitimate to move away from that and say, okay, I liked Casanova Tedesco. It's time for me to get into Tansman or whatever. Right.
Sure.
I think it's fine for people to niche down and also be flexible at the same time.
And a lot of times the skills that you get from those things are really helpful. I mean, I'm trying to think of a good example. I can't think of a good example right now, but if you're geeking out over SOAR for a long time, you're going to get things that are going to be transferable to something in the same genre or something in a different genre. It's cumulative like that. Like you're never going to, even a piece that you play terribly, you're still going to, if you're smart enough, look for something in there that you can then take with you to the next project.
Absolutely. And I think that it's what you're talking about is like you're basically learning about music. Like if you niche down, you learn about SOAR, for example, then you learn to read SOAR better. Like you learn what chords SOAR likes, and you can sort of anticipate what progression SOAR is going to use if you know enough about it. And that was like the same thing that I was talking about with what I was practicing when I was at the Met. Was like I wanted to read a ton of Barrios because that's a whole set of chords that I had never really like explored. I played the kind of draw, but like Barrios was like a super fluid guitarist, as not just as a composer and performer, but as an improviser. So like he had favorite chords the same way that Soar had favorite chords. So like learning all my like Barrios chords makes it so much easier for me to understand Barrios. And I think it's the same for any composer. Like if you just spend some time with a composer, you learn what they like and musically what they like and technically what they like, and you just start to interact with them faster.
There's what I'm doing right now is for the first time, because of the quarantine, because of the job that I have right now, and because of like my life situation where I was planning on doing a whole bunch of stuff this year and it got canceled. But then also I have a son that's about to turn 1. So I'm like, you know what? I need to take a break from just reprioritize how I'm going to do this. I'm getting to look at rep now that I would have overlooked when I was in that serious academic mindset of like, no, this isn't hard enough. Like I'm like, have you ever looked at the Poulenc Sarabande?
Oh my God.
It's like,
it's a great piece.
And like as a grad student, I would have looked at that and been like, yeah, I can read this. But I'm spending time with it now and I'm like, whoa, wait a second, you know, and trying to look at it as an artist and spending, you know, a half an hour, 45 minutes on this technically very easy piece. But musically there's a lot going on. And I'm finding that it's sort of like that guilt of like, I don't know if it's like a Jewish thing, but like, it's like a Jewish guilt that I have of like, I should be playing the second lute suite. I should be playing, you know, the Grand Overture again, you know?
Yeah, right.
But to take your time and really learn how to be a real good artist with this stuff.
Absolutely. That's such a great piece, that Poulenc Sarabande.
Have you ever seen the video of Oscar Gilia playing it at the Boston?
No, I haven't.
Fest? Oh my God. It's beautiful.
Oh.
He's probably my favorite guitarist.
Oscar Gilia?
Yeah.
I'm not so I just haven't listened to him that much.
There's a really I'll share the story with you. So I teach right now at a middle school, and I teach middle school music, and one of the classes is just like a general music class. We have computers and we make instrumentals and we learn about music history, and it's just really cool. It's like a computer lab, keyboard lab, but we do a lot of interactive music. And this was a 6th grade student, and I tease her about this all the time. I say, you know, you told me the best thing, right? So at the beginning of every class, we would listen to something. And I would just try to mess with them. I'd play them some classical music and say, you know, just tell me, how loud is it? What instruments do you hear? If there's a story for this music, what would it be? And I think I was doing some classical guitar, and I did, I don't know. I think it was like Dennis Hazabagic playing some tango or something like that. The kids were, yeah, whatever. It sounds like a dance. And then I played Oscar Gilia playing the slow movement from the Ponce Sonata Romantica, I think. I forget which one. Is the classical or the Romantica? And this girl gives me the story, and she's like, it's like this guy is sitting on a boat and he's looking up at the stars. And it's like, but you have to realize for the rest of like whatever I play, they were just like, yeah, I don't know, it sounds like whatever.
Yeah,
and to me, that's magic, right? Like it doesn't have to be my favorite guitarist; it could be somebody else, right? Like, what is that story? Mean to you?
Yeah, that's great.
Sorry to just fanboy out on Oscar Gilia.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, I think that's really important to like have a favorite guitarist that you love. I think that's like super, super important. I was really obsessed with Michael Tröster for a while. So like I listened to all his album. The thing that I always thought I don't know if this is like a recording technique or whatever, but the thing that I always thought was like when that guy hits the string, like I could just imagine it's like there's like dust kicking up off of it. Like there's something so forceful about every single pluck. It's like when like a gymnast like gets that whatever, that dust on their hands.
Yeah,
and they go
sure.
Like, boom. It always makes me think like, oh man, like just like an explosion of sound.
Does he teach
He teaches at the Music Academy Kessel in Germany.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to go there for a master's, but they don't really do masters so much in Europe. It's just not. It's like a different system over there.
Yeah.
Some places do masters, but not all.
They're like, go win the GFA and then come back, and we'll give you a master.
Yeah, exactly. Win the GFA.
Speaking of the GFA, did I see your name up there?
You did. I gave it a shot. Did not advance.
What was that experience like?
I've done it now twice, but I've been to the GFA a bunch of times. The GFA is such a good vibe. It's just really fun. It's like overdose of guitar. Basically, the way I see the GFA as a competition is like with a smaller competition, if you're like winning other competitions, you take a calculated risk and you think like, okay, it's going to cost me like X amount of dollars to get there, and the prize is this much, and I know this guy's going and whatever. With a GFA, it's just like everybody's going to be there. It's going to be the nastiest players in the world. I'm just going to throw my hand in there, and they're going to pick whoever they like. You know,
right?
There's no like, it's just gambling. You know,
right?
You can be anybody, and you're gambling when you do that. And that's really what is now for getting into competitions. Competitions at their core are essentially just gambling. Like you're putting up X amount of money thinking that you're going to win X amount in fame or notoriety or money, whatever you need out of that prize. And I think that that's fine. Like I obviously have benefited from that. I think that that's definitely cool. But the issue that I have is that is one of the only ways that we're shown as classical guitarists to get ahead is like the competition circuit.
Sure.
It's like all of those things are sponsored by universities. And so like our university teachers are telling us to do competitions. And I think competitions are cool, and they're a good way to find some good players, but a lot of good players fall through the cracks in competitions. And I wish that there were more things. Like I know I recently heard Renee Izquierdo talking about this on Mike Gibson's podcast about like how there needs to be more concert series that are set aside for young players to play. Because currently, if all you're doing is basing who gets careers off of competitions, which is not really how it works.
Right.
Of course, it's much more complicated than that. But if competitions are being shown as the only way that you can get a career, there are probably a lot of people who are graduating college thinking, I can't win a competition, therefore I should do like an MBA or something. Like I should go to a different field.
Absolutely. I can relate to that because I've never been interested in competitions, and I could never.
Yeah.
I never saw myself as that kind of player.
No, it's certainly. I'll tell you what, it really sucks. I hate it as a player. I do not like competitions. They don't agree with me.
Sure.
Like I get really, really like upset when I don't advance, and I don't really even like it that much when I win. Like they just don't agree with me. But I do them anyway because it's a nice way to meet people. First of all, the festival atmosphere is amazing. That's the thing. I have no qualms with competitions. Because they're attached to these festivals where you meet some of your best friends and you learn some of the most important things that you're going to learn from great players. But at the same time, you know, like there are maybe things that we could be doing that are more helpful for young players than competitions, like providing more spaces for them to play concerts, and yeah, rather than pitting people against each other.
I think I'd have to say that a similar thing. I have not been to the GFA, but I do watch a lot of online competition videos and like winners and this and that. And what sometimes bothers me is I will see, and I'm not going to mention any names here. Once I stop the recording, we can talk then about that. But I see a lot of like really great players playing, you know, this competition piece or playing whatever, right? And it's like, I think their mindset is like, I have to make it sound like this. I have to play it really fast. I have to play it really clean. And they all end up sounding the same. And it doesn't sound good. It sounds like, you know, a MIDI track. Not all of them. Some of them are incredible players. And the people who win, especially the big competitions, know that program inside and out. I'm not taking anything away from them, but it's like you listen to, like, what was the theme and variation that you guys played in the GFA?
Oh, the Grand Saraband, right?
No, the competition piece this year.
Oh, the Caprice variations.
So like I'm tuning in and it's like I'm listening to the same person play the same thing over and over. It's I would rather hear some really cool musical ideas, right? Mm-hmm. I would want to hear some really cool artistry. I would want to hear, you know, something that goes a little bit beyond that. And of course, again, the people who win it can do that. But
yeah, of course.
In general.
Yeah, definitely. And it's hard because anybody who wins these competitions or even gets to the finals or the semifinals, they're all like very good players. It's just a question of like you can't really compare two artists very well. You know, like what is like the peak of somebody playing the Jose Sonata? Like,
right.
For one person, it could be the fourth movement, like, right. For another person, it might be like that beautiful third movement, like different peaks of different pieces for different people. And I just feel like it's subjective. Of course, it's subjective, and there's a place for that subjective judgment, and for it to be this not fun, but like exciting thing, and as a way to help people get ahead in their careers. What we just need to do is in classical guitar is diversify, because competitions exist in classical music everywhere. Like violinists are doing competitions, but violinists can also get jobs at orchestras. And there are many different levels of orchestra. Like you don't need to go directly to the Philadelphia Orchestra. You can go and be like, you know, in a small orchestra. You might be in like the Erie Orchestra or something. And you know, you can have a number of these paid positions. So there's a number of different ways for other kinds of musicians to like kind of come up. But for us, it's like either completely forge your own way through like social media and book your own concerts, call all your own people, or it's win some like massive competition.
Sure.
So I would just love for classical guitar hive mind to get to working on like something else, something that we could do that would not be those two things, which are very, very difficult because you know, like the amount of money that I pay in rent is probably similar to the amount of money that Renee Esquerdo pays in rent. So we probably both want the same gig. Right. And personally, I would go with Renee. You know, he's a great player and he's more established. He can put more butts in seats. So there needs to be some kind of a space for young artists where we don't need to compete with old artists who are really, really good and established.
Sure. Does that tie into sort of the idea, the philosophy, because you're saying the guitar hive mind of ex aequo? Because you're part of that, right?
I am, yeah. Ex aequo.
So that's well, could you just tell us what your understanding of that is, your definition, your thoughts?
Yeah, ex aequo is it's basically like a collective, and it's fun. Yeah, it's a bunch of really, really good guitarists, and the idea was an idea that I had after watching Hip Hop Revolution or Hip Hop Evolution on Netflix, and it was an episode about the Wu-Tang Clan, and basically they decided that these guys were doing like they were in a battle, like a really famous battle, and they lost to these guys that were a crew, and they sort of decided like, oh, like we're all soloists, but we're stronger when we're together, when we can pool our resources. And so anyway, X8 Pro is directly related to the Wu-Tang Clan.
Wu-Tang, R.I.P. ODB.
Yes, exactly.
R.I.P.
I'm a really big rap fan. I listen to basically classical music and some jazz and then rap. And
okay, so we're gonna do what everybody does not want us to do is talk about rap.
Okay.
Who do you Well, Philip, who do you prefer to listen to when listening to the rap?
I like Lupe Fiasco. I like all the Chicago guys.
I saw him at a music festival in Connecticut a long time ago. He's a wonderful performer.
Oh my God, yeah, he's so good, so lyrical. I like Mos Def, and I like pretty much everybody from New York. I also really like kind of like crossover stuff with jazz, so I like Common a lot, and I like Robert Glasper also.
I just started following him on Instagram like 6 months ago. Oh my God.
That's first of all great content.
He's great content and just nasty. So good.
Oh my God. Yeah, he's disgusting. So anyway, yeah, I like rap, I like jazz, so obviously I like
Have you been to any, because New York is the place to go for hip hop shows like that, and then there's a lot of stuff, you know, I don't know if you know New Haven well, but Toad's Place is up here, and Toad's Place is this tiny place in New Haven, Connecticut, and when all the New York rappers are like, before they get too big, like they come and do Toad's Place.
Oh wow, nice. Yeah, no, I haven't really gotten into anything in New York. I guess I've been here 5 years. I haven't done anything, so
you know what I found really interesting. What I find interesting about hip hop is that like I try to realize, you know, okay, I'm trying to understand why do I like things why do I like the things that I like? Because I either like something or I hate it, right? Like I love hip hop. I love classical guitar. I love Dark Souls. That's like my favorite. I'm playing Dark Souls 2 right now. Like I like certain things, right? And I'm like, why do I like them? I think I like things that have a specific focus, a very clear set of rules, and then people who master those rules, right?
Yes.
So like for me, someone like Jadakiss is like a phenomenal, because he's like, okay, I understand the rules, you know, and the rules to hip hop are very simple, but it's just so good, right? And that's why people like especially the New York guys are really good. Where like the California guys, the West Coast guys are more about like vibe, which is awesome too. Like there's no doubting that, except for Kendrick Lamar. He's got bars. Yeah. But like a lot of the West Coast guys are about like the vibe, where like the New York guys are about like the technique, right?
I'll tell you who you should check out is Freestyle Fellowship. They're from the 90s, Freestyle Fellowship. But like they're like
writing this down.
It's all freestyle rapping over like jazz, like small group jazz. It's nasty.
Have you heard the Ben Verdery PFA rap?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I have heard that Benjamin Verdery video.
Yeah.
I'm all right with it.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. So yeah, I think that I can put you right into the old archetype of a grinder. You're one of these people who likes to just grind on tasks, right?
Yeah.
So you like to die over. I play Dota 2. Do you know about
okay. Yeah. Sure.
This is a game that is extraordinarily hard, and I am not good at it.
Dota, correct me if I'm wrong, Dota came before League of Legends, right?
Yep.
And it's kind of where League got their idea, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Dota is like League, but harder, just harder and more punishing. The games are longer. They start slower.
But the rules are probably very simple.
The rules are extremely complicated.
Oh, okay, never mind.
But yeah, I think it's the same basic idea. It's just like figure something out that's really hard.
Yeah.
You know, I guess you like simple things. I like hard things. I like skateboarding too. I like skateboarding because skateboarding is like dance or like classical guitar, but you can't practice it the same way because you can't slow anything down.
Oh my God, yeah. Everything is a run, right? Everything is like a full run.
Exactly. Like I tried to learn skateboarding when I was in Cleveland, and I was out every single day for a while. And I would skate like an hour, maybe 2 hour sessions, and I would be there, and I would just be thinking, like, I wish I could slow down this kickflip and, like,
and
just
study
like
the mechanics, right?
Like, actually work on, like, my flick and, like, move my foot at the right speed. But, like, I can't. I have to just, like, throw my foot at it over and over and over again and fall and, like, hurt myself. So I love that idea of, like, skateboarders just, like, slamming their head against something over and over and over again. And then you see that how good they get. They get amazing after a while.
Yeah. That's like, you know, you have to wonder how many other professions or how many other things like that you actually get to work on. Because for me, classical guitar, right, and all of these things, like, you know, the video games I play or the books I read or whatever, it's just about understanding however deep you want to go into it, right? So it's the same thing I was doing. I was just really getting into jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, before the shutdown. And Brazilian jiu-jitsu is the place for classical guitarists, because you're like, let me choke someone, and they're like, no, work on feeling it from your shoulder, right? Work on bringing your arm around. Now you brought this arm up and then your leg got tense, relax your leg. And I'm like, you're preaching to the choir. Like, that is how I think.
Wow. Is it nail safe?
My rolling partners were always like, are you going to scratch me? But I'm really good, because I tucked my thumb and I, like, did all this stuff. And it's not really a striking
Gotcha.
type of martial art, but I never had a problem.
Okay.
It's really cool too. It's like one of the best ways to defend your stuff. Well, we talked about a whole lot of stuff. I would love to wrap up this episode with the Lone Guitarist Questionnaire. I don't know if you know about this. It's still fairly new. And so I'm going to hit you with it. It's 5 questions. I don't have any dramatic, right? I don't have any cool stuff that I can, well, I guess now that I'm on this computer, I can bring it into iMovie and, like, maybe go cha-cha-cha-cha-chum.
Do you know the 5 Fingers of Death? Sway in the Morning?
No, what is that?
It's like he puts on 5 beats that are designed to trip up the freestyle rapper. And it's like a whole thing at the beginning. It's like they've got, like, the Kill Bills. It's like, wee, 5 Fingers of Death. That's what you need.
You said that Sway does that?
Yeah.
I love it when I drive through New York. I haven't done it in a while, and I turn on the radio and Funk Flex is having a seizure.
Yeah.
It was like, Funk Flex, and he's so nasty. He probably doesn't do it live anymore. He probably just,
who knows?
Yeah, those guys are DJing too. Like, that's a really cool thing to watch someone. I never got really into it, but, like, to watch someone do it legitimately. Okay, here's 5 questions. You can answer them in as many as detailed as you like, or you could just give me one-word answers. Whatever works for you. PG. I'm going to call you PG for the rest of the episode. Question number 1. What was the best gig you've ever had?
Gig? Like, does that include concert?
Sure.
The best gig I ever had. My favorite concert, I think, was one that I played. It wasn't the biggest concert I've ever played, but the best concert I ever played was in Philadelphia, my winter's concert. Just a good vibe. My winter's concert, the 2019, I guess.
And what did you play?
I played all kinds of stuff. I played Eloquio de la Danza by Brower. I played When You Wish Upon a Star by Joe Pass, or arranged by Joe Pass. I thought
that was by Jiminy Cricket.
It was written for Jiminy Cricket by Lay and Harline, who is not a super popular writing duo. I forget what else I played. I played some Michael Troster stuff. I played some not Dowland. I played Dom Lano. Mm-hmm. But it was just a good vibe. I thought the audience was really, like, into it. The audience was really feeling it.
Very cool. Question number 2. What was the worst gig you've ever had?
I've gone to a gig. Worst. I've gone to a gig that had no one at it. I played a group muse concert, and I went there, and it was just the guy who hosted it, and I was like, so what's the deal? And he was like, hold hold on. And he went upstairs and he got his wife and his 2 kids, and they came down and they were like, yeah, this is it. Sorry. And I was like, well, what do you want to do? Like, I'm supposed to play this concert. Like, do you want me to play it? He was like, whatever you want. So I played like 2 pieces and left. So, yeah, that sucked. I might think of a worse one. I've had a lot of like goofy ones.
I just like how all of your stories of like bad things happening are straight out of episodes of Curb.
of Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Yeah, like you show up and like no one's at the gig. Like that's
I've done that. Oh, you know what? I've also I've had a lot of weird experiences because I play a lot of group music concerts where you go into somebody's house and you play in their living room. Sure. So one time I went to this person's house and we were expecting it to be small, but we got there and it was, so I'm in this little like hallway right now. It was a little bit bigger than this, like a little bit bigger. And so I'm sitting in a chair and I'm playing guitar and Hannah's there. It was a duo concert. So Hannah is squeezed in right next to me and our knees are touching. And my elbow is like underneath her left hand.
Oh God.
Like her headstock is here. And there's people, there were like 13 people in this little room. So I have somebody like sitting between my legs pretty much, like staring up at me. And I'm thinking like, where do I look? Like, where, like
you close your eyes.
Just just gotta close your eyes. I mean, I can't look at anybody.
Yeah. Question number 3: what is the best piece of advice you've received, and who gave it to you?
Oh man, this is great. So, unlikely person because it's not like a famous old guy, but Dan Ramjetan. If you know Daniel Ramjetan.
No, I don't.
He's a guitarist in Canada somewhere. But we met in Hamilton, and I don't know if he remembers this at all, but he gave me the piece of advice, and I think that he had just stumbled across this piece of wisdom as well. Just like, we're on this road. We're just on this freeway. And as a guitarist in your career, your job is just to not take an exit. That you know that if you keep practicing and if you keep emailing concert promoters and you keep doing all the things that you're supposed to do as a concert guitarist, you will eventually get there because you're on the right road to it. And it's just your job to not take an exit somewhere where it feels comfortable.
Just show up, right?
Just do it. Just go and do the thing over and over and over again, and eventually it starts to work. And it works a little bit every day.
Yeah. That's
so
awesome.
Anyway, that was the best piece of advice.
That's a great way to think about that. Question number 4: what never fails to inspire you?
I would say skate videos where they fall down a lot. That's fun, definitely.
Do you like the fact that they're failing, or do you like the? Oh, okay.
No, not like a sick thing, not like that. But like, okay, there's a movie called The Inspiration that is about skateboarders, and it's about the creation of the street league, basically. And I forget who the skater is, but he's trying to do a half cab into a bowl, which is a pretty difficult trick, and it has a depth.
Can you show me? Can you illustrate the trick with your fingers?
He's just like he's skating into the bowl, and then he's going to do some sort of a trick here, and he's going to land in the bowl.
Okay.
And there's a sequence in there where he screws it up like 5 times in a row, and he's not wearing a shirt. He's getting beat up. This guy is getting physically beaten up, but his determination is just like, I am going to do this trick with this like stupid board with these wheels on it. Like, he's just going to do it. There's nothing like in his mind that he's not going to do it.
Wow.
And there's just like something so visceral about skating for me because like your body is on the line. Like there's this thing, there's no reward for it except that it's kind of cool. And you're going to like hurt yourself to do it.
The buy-in is quite expensive.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a very interesting way of putting it. Like there's no reward other than it's kind of cool. But I mean, there are careers in it. I don't know. Are there real skate careers anymore?
There are real skate careers. Like there are people who make good money, but it's like Nigel Houston makes good money. He's got Lamborghini or something. But like, it's a 1%. It's like any sport. It's a 1% industry. So like, there's a 1% of the skaters that are making 99% of the money.
Yeah.
Not to be too Bernie about it, but all sports are like that. Like,
sure.
Major leagues make millions and millions, and then the minor league right below them will make $25,000 a year or something like that.
Well, guitar is like that too, right?
Guitar is definitely like that.
I mean, if you think about I don't know how much money John Williams would get for a concert, but I could imagine that he doesn't need very much of it to very many concerts to pay his rent for the year,
No, yeah. It is definitely like that. It is definitely also a 1% industry.
Question number 5 is, what is your favorite? And I think we got there, but we could talk about it some more or not. What is your favorite non-guitar activity to partake in?
My favorite non-guitar activity is, it's either like playing Dota or I like to hack a sack. I do that. I don't actually skate that much. I ruined my ankle and I stopped skating afterwards. But I still watch skate videos.
See, as soon as you start getting older, it's like it's real, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I rolled my ankle, and it's the kind of thing that I would have done. If I was 16, I would have rolled my ankle and been out there the next day.
Yeah.
But I rolled my ankle and I was just like on the ground, like, oh my God, this is not going to happen. Like I can't be doing this.
There's a long history of me falling down or hurting myself and my wife laughing.
Yeah.
And one time my ankle was like the size of a grapefruit because I was tweeting while I was walking down her mom's stairs. That was a good one. And then I was scrolling. We were just going through her photos the other day, and there was a photo from like 10 years ago of us after a Valentine's Day dinner falling and like landing on my M finger. And I was like, this is serious. I was really upset. And I can still feel it a little bit, but it's like, it's never caused a problem. But and I'm like on the floor, and she's like snapping a picture.
Oh my God.
Well, we've talked about it a lot. I really appreciate you doing this. Hopefully, as things start to get a little bit better and safer out there, you'll be playing some more concerts and winning some more competitions.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Just have to see how it goes with the world.
And by the way, I think playing concerts in people's living rooms, I think that's like some of the best stuff because it's intimate. It's something that you care about, and you don't have to put on a show for anybody. I mean, you are putting on a show, but you're showing them who you want to be, as opposed to having to worry about appealing to the masses. And I say that with the most respect because we talked about it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love playing in living rooms. You just get much more. You just get more connected with the audience.
Yeah.
There's something about like talking to people and being able to see them, where as opposed to like talking into a room where there's a spotlight on you and they're dark. Like they're out there and you're saying something that you rehearsed, as opposed to like when you play in somebody's living room, it's like I'm talking to this person. They could just say something back to me if they wanted. Like we're on the same level. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, good stuff, man. Thank you for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Talk to you soon. Thanks for having me.